Hello and welcome to another episode of Piano TV. So today I want to talk about the music of Chopin, what I consider to be his most amazing compositions, which is a really tough decision because he's composed about 200 songs in his lifetime. So I kind of had sorted through and picked my favorites and also some of his most famous pieces. So if you didn't check out the video on his history and his life and times, you can click that on the screen and get all caught up on his life. And once you've got that figured out, then we're going to go forward, listen to some audio clips, and talk about some of his best music ever. The vast majority of the music Chopin composed was for the piano because it was his favorite instrument. So he was one of the very rare master composers to just kind of like specialize in one instrument. Most composers were like jack of all trades. They wrote a little string, a little trumpet, a little orchestra, a little piano. But Chopin pretty much always wrote for the piano. Even his compositions that involved orchestra instruments still centered around the piano. So that was kind of his thing. And because of that, his piano music generally only sounds really good on the piano. It doesn't necessarily translate well to other instruments. Chopin was a composer in the Romantic era, which means the Romantic composers tended to have like a very emotive and flashy style to them, and he was no exception. So this would have been music written in the early to mid 1800s. Chopin's music was uniquely rich and detailed while also being subtle and extremely emotive. So like you can listen to any of his pieces and experience like the full spectrum of like complete joy to like complete sorrow. He kind of covers it all. His greatest influences were Bach and Mozart, and he was known to travel with his Bach book of Prelude and Fugue just so he had something to practice. He really, really loved them. And he also taught Clementi's style, so he was very influenced by Baroque music in general. So the first piece of Chopin's that we're going to look at today, in no particular order, because there's no way I could like rank it from favorite to least favorite of my top 6 favorites. So we're going to talk about his second sonata in B flat minor. Now, Chopin wrote a few sonatas, but this one's my favorite because it's just like, it's utterly terrifying. It's freaky. So I'm going to show you a little bit from the third movement, which is the slow movement, and it's nicknamed the Funeral March. So I'm sure you've heard it before. So it's probably like, it's a freaky movement. Like, don't get me wrong, but like, it's really worth watching. I'll link it below, but listen to the whole thing because just from like start to finish, it is a ride. So next up are the nocturnes. Chopin wrote a bunch of nocturnes. He didn't invent the genre, but the genre was in its infancy when he was a songwriter active in the 1800s, and he basically took the genre and ran with it and developed it. So much to the extent that Chopin is basically ubiquitous with the nocturne. If you hear the word nocturne, you're probably going to think of Chopin. And because of that, it was really hard to pick just one to show you, but I had to just pick one. So I chose my own personal dark favorite because you know how much I love my dark music. This is the nocturne in C sharp minor, published posthumously. Chopin also wrote quite a few etudes. So as you probably already know, etudes are basically just like musical exercises. So for example, there might be an etude on playing staccato, or there might be an etude on playing triplets, or whatever it happens to be. So etudes are designed to build like one specific technique. Now, Chopin didn't just write etudes. He wrote like the creme de la creme of etudes. So these are like standard concert repertoire if you're an advanced piano player, and you'll hear them a lot at concerts and stuff just because they're really catchy, they're really likable, they're really difficult, and they're just really awesome. So I, again, had a hard time deciding, but my, I think, true favorite is his revolutionary etude, opus 10, number 12, just because we're going along this like dark and stormy theme here. So this was written in 1831 when the November Uprising happened. So as you might remember from the Chopin video previous, Chopin is Polish, I guess he doesn't live anymore, and Poland lost the revolution to Russia. It was like a whole big thing. And Chopin, being like the nationalist that he was super crushed, and he wrote a bunch of music about his despair, and this was one of the products of that despair. I love Chopin's waltzes. He wrote a lot of them, a lot of really beautiful waltzes. They're very fun to play, and you can like get into his waltzes even from like a grade 6, 7, 8 level and on. The waltz I'm going to show you today might not be like my true passionate favorite, but I wanted to show you that Chopin wasn't just like all dark music and angstiness. He had a lighter side too, and this is an example of it. This is I don't know if I said it already, this is the Minute Waltz in D flat major, opus 64, number 1. So he nicknamed this song the Little Dog Waltz because apparently he was inspired by a little dog chasing his tail running around, and he thought it was like, oh, that's so cute, I'm gonna write a song about it. So we kind of mentioned that Chopin had a bit of a nationalistic bent, which you can see in his music that was inspired by politics, but he also took some pieces from his Polish heritage. So he wrote mazurkas and he wrote polonaises, and both of those are Polish dances. So of the two, I want to talk about the polonaises just because I think they're a really cool genre, and he basically popularized them. Chopin was so like thoroughly involved in the polonaise that he wrote them from like as young as age 7, younger than 10, all the way up until like a couple years before his death. So he spent his life writing polonaises. And the one I want to show you today is his polonaise in A flat that is dubbed the title Heroic, because it's really powerful and it's really hard hitting and it's really, really tough to play. So this could be like a future piece that we all aspire to. And finally, no discussion on Chopin's music would be complete without discussing his 4 ballads. Ballads? I don't know how to pronounce it with the E, I'm sorry. I'm going to sound like a fool. Ballads. Anyway, the one I'm going to show you today is the 4th one. And I should mention that all of these are really tough to play. Like, these are kind of like, again, extremely difficult piano pieces. So the reason I'm choosing the 4th one in F minor is just, again, because I think it's my favorite. It's really, really beautiful. And I feel like it just kind of encompasses the essence of romantic music in and of itself. Like, if I were to pick one song to represent romantic music as a whole, it would probably be this one. And that is all we will talk about today with Chopin's music. So please open up the description bar below. You can visit my website, pianotv.net, and you can get like the full versions of all these songs and information on like what they all are and some links and stuff, just so you can follow along the Chopin yellow brick road. One thing I forgot to mention a couple videos ago when we did the Chopin like Life and Times is that was the Piano TV channel's 100th video. So even though this is now our 102nd video, I still want to say like happy birthday to me. And thank you all for tuning in and watching and subscribing. It is so fun, and I hope you stick around for the journey and learn piano stuff with me. Toodaloo.